You talked a lot about your family. You always talk passionately, but you had a child when you were in New York, and you talked about that whip going back and forth to Louisiana. That impacted you greatly, didn't it? The situation with your son.
Yeah, well, it was actually my daughter first.
I'm, I'm sorry.
Yeah, my daughter.
Yeah.
I was in school. I got out of school one evening, and I was feeling good. Popping my collar. Had made a couple of good grades. And then had got my first stipend. That they give you and free tokens to catch the train. That none of that happens in Louisiana. So it was all of that was new to me. So I was excited. I wanted to talk about it. So I stopped at a payphone to call my mother, and no one answered the phone. So I said, "Oh, well, Mama must be asleep." So I called my sister. No one answered the phone. Then I called my brother. No one answered. I said, "Now, if I call my grandfather and no one answers, something seriously going on. I'm getting ready to catch a flight." Well, it was something going on. That my grandfather asked me where was I. I told him in New York. He asked me had anybody told me, and I said, "Told me what?" He said, "They're waking your daughter tonight." And that was my 6-year-old daughter, Latanya White. She was standing at a snowball stand, her and my other three kids, and some 14, 15-year-olds were on a bicycle, and they were shooting at each other. And my daughter caught a bullet in the head. But however, I didn't know about it until the night of the wake, and I tried to get the funeral director and everyone to stop it. My mother felt that being that I was the oversensitive one in the family, and felt like I was such a protector, come shoot up the city. Yeah. So I took off on some crazy shit at that time. I actually
But now
started
let me ask you, Lee, because that happened when. How old were you when your daughter passed?
22.
So
I was
you were
22.
probably you had some anger and some stuff in your heart then.
I had a lot of anger and aggression build up, man. You know, and I actually did go home, and everybody disappeared when I got there. Actually, no one wanted to come and show me where the gravesite was. They were afraid that I was going to dig her up. I don't know if I would have or not, but I was really hurt and angry. I couldn't catch up with uh, the mother. No one wanted to see me. They knew I was going to turn into a Tasmanian devil. So I went back to New York a week later, and I just disappeared. I fell off the grid from everybody. And
Did you go looking for the shooters, the kids? Did you have that feeling in your heart?
actually, no one would give me. Yes, I did want to because he was still out on the run. And uh, the family heard that I was down there with that, and I had actually some friends from Cypress Hills that came down behind me, and they heard that people were looking for them, so they had him. They took the kid to turn him in.
And did that kid end up going to prison and doing jail time?
He did. He did about 15 years and was let out on parole. Hmm.
How's 15 years feel like in your heart? I mean, I know you're a different man. You're a Christian, but what's your heart when you hear
Well,
that? You're saying it. How's it feel?
I mean, I still have the hurt from losing my daughter because she was born minutes before my birthday, so she was my birthday gift. So, I had to sit and think. Even back when I tried to destroy myself, up until the point where, as I was sitting down with my mother, about 5 years later, she said, "Baby, that kid didn't. He wasn't shooting at your child. You know, he didn't mean to do that. You have to forgive him." So, I mean, even a couple of more years after that, I had a lot of resentment, and man, I just, it kind of changed my nature for a minute. But uh, my mother never gave up. Okay, she never stopped praying. They talk about that praying grandmother. I had that praying mother. She never gave up. So, uh, my God touched my heart enough to say that I forgave that kid, and it really wasn't his fault. He didn't know how to shoot.
That that's an interesting thing you say, and I want to ask a question, and this is I'm about having the conversation, right? So we're not going to get there without it. Do you feel like the black community is more forgiving than the white community when it comes to these kind of situations?
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. If it's
Why?
not,
Why though? Why though?
well, actually, the white community, they look at death in a whole different realm, you know, because I don't know if it's because of their upbringing and they've never really known real hurt. I mean, I I think that they're cold hearted in that sense, you know, and they get angry when they do. If someone does pass, they get angry, and I say this because I had this one white friend. He was Russell. Russell was one of my best friends, and he would say, "Man, they hate it. They hate themselves because they turned black after within 24 hours after their demise, and they don't want to be seen like that." He said, "That's why none of my family has ever had an open casket because I went to his family funerals. He was my friend, you know." He said, "Man," he said, "right now the family is so mad and they look at you and they're like, so it's not good." You know, the father, once again, he protected me. Uh, but me and Russell would have to take off before it was over, you know.
Mhm.
And I never understood that, and I didn't believe for a
So
long
that
time.
was that your really first time with that white racist kind of feeling at this funeral where you started to experience that?
Oh no, I experienced racism all through growing up in Louisiana. I mean, it didn't happen so much to me because my mother sheltered me and the rest, but the elder siblings, they experienced it all the time. I had a brother that the police just would pull up because he was one of the guys known as, okay, he can fight. So if they wanted to see a good fight, they meet on the school ground, and like I said, 20 on one side, 20 on the other, and they have a good fight. Well, the police, they're hear about these things, and they're like, okay, well, I'm gonna try him. But he got 4 or 5 other police around him, you know, and he whooping their ass, and then the next thing you know, he's fighting all of them and going to jail. You know, so you know, we also had I had to experience a few of my friends being killed and thrown in the sugarcane field. You know, and we'll be walking to school, even walking to church, and we might have some kids that's. I lived on the same drag, the same highway, Holland Road, that LSU is on. So you might have some white kids ride down there and just start shooting at us. One of my friends, we walk into our church, he got shot in the ass. You know, so and
And
it's
this is
still
from
like,
like this is like the local kids and all that stuff. So when you were growing up in that era, you know, and I appreciate the way you responded to the question about uh, because I know this personally. You know how well I'm connected in the world that we're in, and it's a great honor to also be a white guy that can ask these questions because not every white person is brave enough to ask these questions. They're not they're scared of this and that. But this is real talk. And when was the first age you saw somebody killed at you in your life? Because a lot of people don't realize I ask the same questions to most of my black guests, and when I ask this question, Lee, it's usually 10 or 11 for murder, and usually between 10 and 14 for their first sexual experience with a 30-something-year-old woman. That's a true story. I'm telling you, almost everybody.
actually, I was 5 years old when I saw uh, it was one of the guys that lived 3 houses from us. I mean, they had tear gas and everything, whereas we had to cover up, and we're outside of our own homes. And the police actually barricaded this guy in, and they threw the tear gas and all of that. But he actually killed himself. He shot himself in the head, you know. But outside of that, I've seen uh, one of, well, I would say a jealous husband shoot and kill his wife, shot her in the head with a shotgun. You know, her body laying in the middle of the
That was
street.
right in front of you.
Yeah, I was about 11.
There you
Yeah,
go. So
yeah.
how what was that? So there's a question that And let's focus on that, and then we'll get into, because I want to talk all the topics. I think it's kind of interesting because that's the one thing we don't hear from corporate media and all that stuff. They don't get into the real conversations, I don't feel, and this is why podcasts are great. So you see that at 11. What did you do when you walked in? You see the blood, the reaction, all that. What was it like at 11 to process that?
It was freaky. It was scary. Uh, and from that point, I mean, I just had to start adjusting my mind and my heart to shutting that out. Otherwise, it would have damaged me for a great part of my life. But like I said, my mother, though she was blind, she was a wise woman. Though she dropped out of school in the ninth grade, she's a very wise woman. So, however, she was a good mechanism to guide me mentally and spiritually away from that sort of thing. Although I walked down that street a couple of times again just to see the blood on the street, because it wasn't like they were going to clean it up in our neighborhood. So, you know,
Did you feel like when you look back at that memory in time, um, how do you feel it's in comparison to the impact of what's going on in the streets now where these kids are seeing this? Because it feels like, to me, I don't know. I haven't really, I mean, I think I do know. There's a lot of, they're not connected. They don't realize it's almost like a video game. They shoot things or they take a shot at somebody. They don't understand that somebody could die on the other end of that. And they're doing this at like 12, 14 years old now. They're the ones strapping guns. It's
hmm
crazy. I mean,
yeah, it
that's a
is.
weird thing.
It is. I mean, kids today, they're not conscious of what they do until it totally impacts them. And that being when they're getting the handcuffs put on and when they're talking about you're going to get a life sentence but I would direct that to the law taking first and foremost the Bible out of the school. Secondly, uh, for them to feel that they should chastise the parent for chastising the child to make the child a better person as they mature into age. Uh, I think it's crazy that your kid, after you just whooped their butt because they went outside and you told them not to, and they broke something of somebody else's next door, and now that parent is coming over, but now you can't chastise your kid because they wasn't supposed to be out in the beginning. They call the police, and the police take you to jail. They don't let us raise our children anymore. Okay,
That's
I
that's an interesting point, Lee, because a lot of ways in my background in the prison system, a lot of men that I dealt with, and it wasn't only black men. I think it was men in general in the New England area I grew up in and lived in. Um, they were incarcerated for rules of law that really, in a lot of ways, were kind of devised to create the jail system, to become this, this sort of war machine, right? And so, do you think that was used purposely to lock up young black men in America, in your opinion, during your era?
oh, most definitely. I mean, we've been incarcerated a great deal of our life, at least 400 or 500 years that they speak of. Uh, but before that, in my studies, it showed that we were free, we were wealthy, we didn't know what poverty was, in the countries that they say we're originated from, which is all over Africa. But it's just crazy that today's world you can't take care and chastise your own child without being, chastised yourself. So, what is that telling the kid? I don't have to worry about that. I could do whatever I want to do. Touch me if you want to. I'm gonna dial 911. Well, gratefully, I my all my kids are grown. All 10 of them are grown. I have 10 grandkids and 4 great grandkids. And you know, because in my time, I would, even if I had young kids today, I would put it on their ass, you know, because they're gonna know that you're not the only person living in this world. You can't walk about being disrespectful. You cannot go to do this thinking that you can do it just because you're bigger or you're smarter. You know, have to lay the rules and have them adapt and gravitate toward principle. You know.
Kids today are just in a position. I think in some ways, I mean, I agree with you all that, and a bag of chips there, but a lot of ways, I just feel bad for them, man, because they're just overly exposed to the nonsense of the political games that take place. They're overexposed to the nonsense of the media driven, just all these different crazy things. But when you were a kid, Lee, when
Hmm.
did you find that the like the things to do as a kid when you were a kid compared to now, like because we didn't have technology back then, you and I are in the same era. What did you do? Like, how did you escape? Did you like go kick a can? Did you go play stickball? Did you go look into windows of your neighbor? What were you doing?
No, actually, see, we played marbles, and my grandfather, he was all around construction man, okay, or journeyman as they would call him today. And I would want to go to work with my grandfather. My grandmother went fishing 3 times a week just to go sit on the pond and take her sip of her gin, after work. And I want to sit on the pond with my grandmother. I want to catch fish. So there was always something for us to do on top of the fact that my mother kept us in church. You know, we did the choir rehearsal for the adults. Then I had to go with her to the choir rehearsal for the junior kids, and then we had Bible study. Then we had arts and crafts on Saturday, where we go out and take the molds out and make things. Or I would go with my grandfather to work, or go with him to clean up, sweep up some of the churches, because he did that too.
It
So,
sounds like I will say that your childhood to me is it sounds good. Like I feel like everything you're telling me, I know there was pain and suffering and all that stuff, but you had some good positive memories in your childhood. I think you'd agree, right?
oh, most definitely, most definitely.
Do you think that
I learned how.
do you think that shaped you though in a way that made you that different person? That's why you're able to move the way you move now.
I think it's a combination of that and the new environment that my mother placed me in when, as I spent my summers in California and then moving to New York uh,
Hmm.
at 20. So yeah, my mother, it took the both to balance that out. Whereas I knew I didn't want to be what I left,
Hmm.
and I didn't want to be what my friends were. So I practiced being who I am today. You know,
And
well
who
supposed.
who who are you? Who are you today, Lee? Who are you today?
I'm God's child for one. Okay, and I'm a guy that has a sense of direction to know that I have to put God in the head of everything that I do, because without God's strength, I would not be here. I couldn't walk. I couldn't wake up in the morning. And I'm that guy that will sit and think about things and seek directions, do scenarios. I'll even I'll get with you, and you and I will pitch a few scenarios around to see what's the best fit for things. So that's who I am today, and that allows me to go forward in a manner where I'm not rushed to do anything because I already know what I'm doing, and I have peace while I'm doing it.
Piece is amazing. I want to just kind of like respect your time here, and we're going to have lots of time to talk, and actually looking forward to doing some more in person stuff where you and I actually interview other people together. I think we've talked about doing that and getting on the road. But one of the things I want to share is, and I'll share the story, and then I'll hear your comments. Is that I want to make a very valid point here that when I met Lee Carter, I was probably at one of the lowest points in my life, and I was at a depression level of like I had God, but I was hopeless, and I was willing to actually I was really contemplating for the second or third time suicide. And I drove my daughter. I'll remember it till the day I meet my father and my maker. Is I was driving to Boston, and I was dropping my daughter off to go to Tennessee with her boyfriend. And I just left my ex-girlfriend at the time still living with her, and I knew it was over, and I was sad, and I was just depressed. And this dude calls me out of the blue, and you just got back from Aruba, and I got glasses on, so I don't want to be a punk and cry, but I'm not afraid to cry anymore. But I'm going to tell you right now, You kind of saved my life, Lee, because what you gave me was hope and promise. And ever since that moment, you haven't not taken a call. You haven't came through with your word, and you've been a brother to me. And you told me from day one, for some reason, we connected. And I just want to thank you, and I want to say publicly, man, for the, there are tears under here. I'm just sweating out of my eyeballs, but you make a difference in my life, and you did from the beginning. And when you sang to me, man, I'm driving back from Boston, and I'm literally ready to cry. And I don't want to get into talking about. You can share whatever you want on that story, Lee. But man, you just saved my life, man. I just thank you.
Hey, man, I'm grateful that God put me in place to be able to do that because we have work to do, my brother. And you are going forward diligently to do those things by reaching out to the people and giving people an opportunity to release whatever it is that they have bottled up by speaking the truth. Bringing out what it is that makes a difference to them are things that uh, making space for greater things to formulate. And I remember that old song, and I'm gonna give it to you right now, my brother. It was that Jesus, you're the center of my joys. All that's good and perfect comes from you. You're the heart of my contentment, hope for all I do. Jesus, you're the center of my joys. When I've lost my direction, you're the compass for my way. You are the fire and lights when the nights are long and cold. In sadness, you are the laughter. In everything I do, you are the force and finish of my highest dreams. Yes, my brother. Yeah.
Man, I'll tell you right
I'm
now,
really
you're
weeping
the,
over here, man.
yeah, man. We're going to be starting to do a little snip. We got a reputation to protect, man. We can't be crying on this podcast, brother. But
Hey,
man, I love you, man. Lee, you are my brother, and I can't tell you how much I'm just privileged and honored to have you in my life. You, even when I don't talk to you, sometimes you pop in my head and my heart, and I'm like, you know what, I got somebody. Because we all feel lonely, man. We feel
yes,
like we
sir.
ain't got nobody in our heart, and you've been there for me. I just want to say thank you. I want to keep you, sort of coming on this podcast. And again, me and you creating something together. Where can people find you, Lee? Check you out on your platforms and find out you make movies. I didn't even get into this, guys. This guy makes movies, rap music in general, Christian music. He's involved in the Purple Rain. Why don't you lay that out? Just a quick few minutes about you before we would exit out of here, because that's, you know what, Lee, you got a big resume, and I don't even think it's hard. It's hard for me to explain it. So what is it?
Well, I'll go through it quickly. I manage Hector Camacho Jr., the boxer. I'm the president of Purple Rain Entertainment. I manage Elijah Connor, Prince's cousin, who's also my business partner. I'm part of Blank Canvas, which is a record label and a film company. Uh, the affiliations through that is with Lil Harry-O. We know Michael Harris is Death Row Records, so that's his nephew. We're doing a book and a film. I'm also working with a group of wonderful guys that are into medicinals. Uh, they're secure for PTSD and quite a few other things. They're uh, scientists and neurological surgeons as well as medics. Most of them Navy SEALs, Black Ops, and Rangers. We're actually servicing 800 military guys that are in the field for their PTSD, as well as 400 for first responders around the U.S. So,
So, so I'm saying, man, you're all. I mean, and this is all stuff I've seen firsthand, Lee. And
yeah,
so, sounds like a lot. You're flying around the country. You're in Africa one weekend, California the other.
yes,
Um,
sir.
how do you handle all that? Because you got a lot on the plate, man.
Well, actually, it's a joy to me because it gives me the experience of visiting places that I've never been before, as well as meet people of different cultures. And I I like to observe, like I said, and to look at some of the people, even in the third world countries where Hector Camacho had to fight at. And I look at those people, and they're not missing meals. although they don't have the type of attire, they're not wearing the kind of attire we wear, and they don't have the most of them the clean waters and so forth that we have, but those people seem content and happy. You know?
That's a content and happy is it comes from a piece of heart, and it comes from our Lord and Savior. Your song was beautiful. Your story is amazing, and it's just the beginning, folks. I'm going to get a lot more stories out of this guy, Lee Carter, my brother, my friend. Somebody that I think, Lee, you can probably attest to this because you talked a little bit about it. Yes, I am, and also in some of these projects with Lee, with some of the municipal, these different type of medicines that we are working with, and these are coming from natural medicines. They're not pharmaceuticals. So we share in a lot, Lee, but most importantly, we share love and a brotherhood. Thank you so
Yes,
much for
sir.
coming on. Where can people find you, Lee?
You can find me at on Instagram at Leethel Carter. You can also find me on Instagram as Lee's Entertainment, and the same Leethel Carter for TikTok if it's still there, and Leethel Carter on Facebook. You all right, my brother?
Lethal Carter, yeah, I've got you, man. Go ahead and hang out in the back room there. I'm going to close out this show. Thank you very much, Mr. Carter. Thank you for coming on this podcast. The Prayed Up
Yes,
Network,
sir.
Kevin Allen, be back in a moment. All right, so here we are. Welcome back. And, every now and then, right, in life, you get a chance to meet somebody. Maybe come across that person. You don't know who they are. You could be in an airport. You could be in a grocery store. You could be in a park. You could be in a prison cell. You could be a correction officer serving a meal to somebody in a prison cell. You could be a priest. You could be the nurse that gave birth to the child. You never know who that person is. And one of the things I heard Lee say, and I know I say it, and him and I share, we like meeting people. We love people. Like, if I had my way, I would like to talk to 10 million people before I die. I want to personally engage with 10. That's like, you know what? I used to say a million, but now it's heck, I'm going to go big or go home. So I want to meet everybody I can. And this is an example. If that day on that Zoom call, I didn't see this beautiful soul speaking and say, hey, let's connect, and we started talking, we wouldn't be talking today. So it's about connecting. So what I want to say is this show is dedicated to those people out there that are feeling lonely, depressed, emotionally destroyed. If you're out there right now and you feel like your life just ain't, I don't care what conditions you came from. You heard about Lee's condition, having to drive back to see his daughter already buried and deal with that issue as a young man, is still going out through life, making some bad decisions, making some great decisions, but always staying prayed up. As he said, this is the fundamentals to success as we live in this world, in this life, is God has provided us this pathway. But we don't all get it. It took me 53 years. See, if I hadn't found God, I wouldn't have found Lee Carter. You guys stay prayed up there. This is Kevin Allen. We'll see you on the next time on the Be Better podcast.